Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Africa News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Cameroon's Air Force attacks Boko Haram positions in the far north for the first time after the Nigerian jihadists seize a military camp. Also, dozens of new Ebola cases erupt in Liberia along the border with Sierra Leone, and the official number of cases from the West African epidemic passes 20,000. We take a look back at one of the continent's biggest ever health crises. And cheese is not traditionally part of Congolese cuisine, but one group of farmers in the East have been leading the way with locally produced dairy since the 70s. This despite decades of instability in the region. First up, for the first time, Cameroon's launched airstrikes against Nigerian Islamist insurgent group Boko Haram. Fighter planes targeted fighters' positions in the far north on the Cameroonian side of the border, forcing militants from a seized military base at Asigazia. Yaoundé's ramped up operations against Boko Haram, this after months of deadly raids on troops and civilians. The group's become a deadly force whose tactics include massacres, kidnappings and assaults on both sides of the frontier. Cameroonian officials say that Sunday's bombardment followed 3 days of attacks on 5 villages. Well, Aminu Abubakar is in Kano, Nigeria. He tells us more about the insurgents' ramping up of attacks on the neighboring nation.
In recent months, Boko Haram has been carrying out deadly attacks across the border into Cameroon. And this is because most Boko Haram has carried out deadly attacks on Nigerian towns and villages, forced residents in their thousands to flee their homes, disrupting food production and also commercial activities. And Boko Haram have exhausted all the food supplies and fuel that they have found in these areas. And now they need to maintain a supply routes for their fuel and food. And now the only place they can get these is Cameroon. That's why they are carrying out deadly attacks raids on Cameroonian soil for food and also for fuel, which they need badly to maintain their vehicles for the operations.
Aminu Abubakar there for us in Nigeria. A Senegalese court refused to grant bail for the son of former President Abdoulaye Wade. Karim Wade's accused of amassing a €180 million fortune through corruption during his time as minister. Judges refused bail on the grounds that it could lead to the intimidation of witnesses. Wade the younger had been an extremely divisive figure in Senegalese politics prior to the end of his father's rule in 2012. He's been in custody since last April. Dozens of relatives of victims of Ivory Coast's 2010 post-electoral crisis gathered outside court in Abidjan on Monday, where the former First Lady is on trial. Angry crowds blame Simone Gbagbo for helping fan the flames of violence that caused the deaths of around 3,000 people when her husband, Laurent Gbagbo, refused to accept electoral defeat.
The hearing lasted less than 30 minutes. The trial was suspended at the defendant's lawyer's request, who argued legal queries and concerns about the procedure. The former First Lady, Simone Gbagbo, dubbed the Iron Lady, has been charged along with 82 supporters of her husband with attempting to undermine the security of the state. The families of the victims will still have to wait for the court's decision. For many, the pain remains fresh. They're asking for the court to add further charges to her case.
Simone Gbagbo is charged with attempting to undermine the security of the state, which implies that Ivory Coast is the victim. But we are the real visible victims that have suffered human rights violations.
The victims' families have been calling for Simone Gbagbo to stand trial for crimes against humanity. The International Criminal Court has already laid those charges, but Ivory Coast refuses to hand her over, saying she should be tried in a domestic court. Violence broke out in 2010 when Laurent Gbagbo refused to cede power to his rival, Alassane Ouattara, who was declared the winner of a presidential poll. Laurent and Simone Gbagbo were arrested on April 11, 2011, after 5 months of fierce fighting that killed more than 3,000 people.
West Africa's Ebola epidemic's proven to be one of the biggest health crises the continent has ever faced. On Monday, the number of cases officially registered passed 20,000, with around 8,000 fatalities. International efforts to rein in the virus's spread have met with some success, but it has been a year of setbacks. Haxi Mayers Belkin takes a look back.
1 year ago, in the remote village of Meliandou in southern Guinea, Emile Ouamounou died. He was 2 years old. Within days, his 3-year-old sister also died, followed shortly by their pregnant mother. All had succumbed to the Ebola virus. It was only in March that the outbreak, which would become the worst ever on record, was confirmed by the World Health Organization. Later that month, Liberia too confirmed its first cases of the virus. In May, it was Sierra Leone. The 3 countries have been at the heart of the epidemic. Porous land borders and frequent misdiagnosis of symptoms meant that Ebola spread fast. Nigeria, Senegal and Mali were also affected in the months that followed. The number of dead is now just under 8,000. Widespread fear of health workers who have been regarded with suspicion, and traditional burial practices where mourners often touch contaminated corpses only accelerated the death toll. Public information campaigns have been a central part of the fight back. Whilst they've been effective in driving down the rate of new cases in densely populated urban areas like Monrovia, other rural zones, particularly in West Liberia, are contending with a new spike of infection. The economic impact of the epidemic has been huge. The World Bank has warned that Ebola could still drain billions from West African economies if not contained by the end of next year. As it stands, there's no vaccine or cure for the virus, but more money than ever is now being channeled into research. On Monday, US authorities gave emergency authorization to a Swiss pharmaceutical firm for an Ebola test that gives results in as little as 3 hours.
Visitors from all over the world travel to Kenya to go on safari, but many Kenyan kids have never actually seen a lion. Now, a conservation initiative is trying to change that. School children are being invited to Aberdare National Park for their first ever safari. Conservation charity Ewaso Lions is hoping to push home the importance of preserving the country's wildlife to those to whom it should be most precious.
In rural Kenya especially, they've never had positive experiences with wildlife. They've only had very negative ones. In Samburu, where I live, the children there see cheetahs killing goats, elephants chasing people, the remains of a camel after a lion's preyed on it. It's all so negative. Yet people from all over the world are coming to see Kenya's wildlife, and the Kenyans don't understand why. They've never seen any positive side to it. So for us, it's important that we try and change this. Let the children have a much more positive experience.
Cheese is not traditionally part of Congolese cuisine, but our correspondents have been to meet one group of farmers with an unusual success story. Despite the region having been plagued by decades of conflict and insecurity, the Kinshasa dairy farm has been producing cheese since the 1970s. Take a look.
It's a small corner of paradise in a troubled region. For the last 40 years, the Masisi Mountains have been home to these cows. It's in the little town of Lushebere that the incredible story of Congolese cheese has started. For the last 10 years, Father Biamungu has been fighting to restart this farm, completely destroyed after the first war in Congo.
It has not started with us, but with the missionaries who were responsible for the farm. After the war, we tried to restart everything little by little. It's difficult as it's not easy to find the financial means. But slowly, I'm sure we'll manage to improve the activity. Here is the room where we make the cheese.
With the war, the production suddenly stopped in '96. The Belgian missionary left, but their know-how has stayed. Around 50 employees still know pasteurization, pounding, and as a result, a unique cheese, a sort of Gouda, the pride of this cheese specialist.
People prefer Gouda.
Not Camembert?
No, not Camembert.
This work makes me wise. It's not easy, as there is a theoretical and a practical part in it.
Every month, 1,000 little goudas are produced here. The production is still limited, but booming.
It's kicking off again, but we need to produce more milk to be able to produce more cheese. Later, we'll see if we can produce butter like the missionaries in the past. It would please the clients we have in Goma, but also in Kinshasa and all over this region.
The Lushebere farm is now missing only one thing: a lasting peace to continue to grow and see more cows graze these lush hills.
That wraps up Africa News. Well, for more updates from around the world and from the African continent, you can always check out our website at www.france24.com. Otherwise, stay with us, more coming up.
Anticipate. Take a stand. Be mobile. Defend your position. Be independent. Meet every challenge. Surprise people. Be a leader. Be equipped to understand the world. France 24.